Hello everyone, hope this video will find you all in a good health. Myself Dr. Parth and today I will teach you about soft tissue myiasis. It is also known by the another name that is soft tissue maggots. Alright, now I am taking this lecture guys because before few days in my histopathology department I have received a biopsy from the ulcer and that was showing the maggots in the soft tissue. That's why I am taking this short lecture. Alright, so what do you mean by myiasis? So guys, it's the maggot infection. It is one of the parasitic infestation that will be caused by maggots. The maggots is also known by the another name that is fly larvae that will feed from your tissue. So it can be understandable that if they will feed from your tissue then ultimately it can grow inside the human body. So it can grow inside the infected host. Alright. Now guys, these maggots usually infect a dirty wound. It is usually seen when your skin is broken. So it is seen in the contaminated wound with the urine or feces or by the soil. So it commonly infect a open dirty wound. But guys, it is not the rule. Sometimes these maggots can infect the unbroken skin as well, and in that case, it can be dangerous. Some species, like that of botfly, tumblefly, or Cordylobia arthropophaga, can infect the unbroken skin as well, and that's why the maggot infection is dangerous sometimes. Alright, now this myiasis name is derived from the Greek word meaning a fly. It's a very ancient name. And guys, the clinical manifestation is totally depend upon the type of species and the location of wound. So the clinical feature varies according to the locations of the wound and the species of infection. Alright. Now, which can be the common sites of infection of this maggot? So, as we have discussed, usually it infect the open dirty wound. So, obviously, the common site is cutaneous area. It infect your skin and the subcutaneous tissue, particularly in the trunk and back area and the feet. But sometimes it can enter through the nose or ear as well. And guys, sometimes if you have swallowed a contaminated food with the egg or larva of these maggots, then it can reach up to your stomach and intestine, and sometimes in the gastric and intestinal area you can have the myiasis infection as well. Alright, so various site of involvement could be a skin, it could be eyes, it could be your ear, stomach, intestine, or genitourinary tracts. These are the various sites of involvement by the maggots. Alright. Now guys, the signs and symptom that is a clinical manifestation is usually according to the site of involvement. So the first common site of involvement is obviously it usually manifest is usually infect the wounds, that is the dirty wound. So the first common site is cutaneous myiasis, in which you have a painful skin ulcer, and in the center you have the furuncle from which the larva will breathe. So the usual presentation is painful ulcer with a discharge. Okay, the second common site could be a nasal myiasis, in which the nose is getting infected and the larva is entered through the nose. So it can cause the obstruction in the nasal passage, and so you can have the irritation, and because of irritation you have the more inflammation and more discharge. Sometimes because of infection you can have pus discharge as well, and if the infection is severe you can develop the fever and the facial edema around the nose. So that is the manifestation in nasal myiasis. Now suppose the myiasis is seen in ear, then you can have ear discharge and ear pain. And sometime from the otitis media, from the middle ear, it can reach up to the brain and it can cause meningitis as well. So that is the third clinical manifestation. Now guys, it's interesting that sometime maggots can involve your eyes as well, which is known by the name ophthalmomyiasis, in which you can have the eye pain and the discharge from the eye. Your eyes are getting infected and you can develop a uveitis, glaucoma, or retinal detachment. So that are the four common classification of myiasis and clinical manifestation according to each. So the classification is according to the site of involvement. Alright. Now guys, how can you prevent the maggot infection? So the prevention can be in the form of two way. Either you can control the vector that is causing the meiosis, you can control the fly larvae, or you can take a personal hygiene to prevent the infection. So guys, for the vector control, you can do the insecticide spray in the suspected area or in the endemic area to kill the larva wherever necessary. So insecticidal spray is economical and a common mode of use for the vector control. Alright. The second interesting way to control the vector feeding is sterile insect technique. So in the sterile insect technique guys, a significant number of artificial reared sterilized male flies will be introduced. So in the community we are introducing a sterilized male larvae. So they will not produce a fertilized egg and you can break the chain of transmission. So that is the another interesting way of sterilizing the male flies through the irradiation. Alright. Now this is the most common used prevention mode for the maggot infection prevention. So guys, for prevention of the infection in the human, you have to take a personal hygiene. The personal hygiene should be maintained. You have to do regular cloth washing. You should wear only cleaned clothes, and clothes should be regularly ironed because the heat produced by the ironing can kill the larva or egg. So the personal hygiene is very important in prevention of the maggot infection, and that's why the maggot infection is usually seen when the personal hygiene is not maintained or you have the dirty wound. Alright. Now guys, I will show you the histopathology of the larva. Now guys, we have received a biopsy from the ulcer from the 32-year male patient which was diabetic, and we have processed the biopsy and examined histopathologically. Then we have seen a maggots in the soft tissue, especially we have seen the maggots in the adipose tissue in the subcutaneous area. So guys, which are the histopathological findings for the diagnosis of larva? Alright. So guys, here you have to see mainly for the two important feature. The most the most important histopathological feature is the presence of maggot body segment over which you can see a cuticular spine. So guys, usually you can see a body segment of the larva over which you will develop a cuticular spines. So the spines are present over the body segment. That is the most important histopathological finding. The second one is you can see a spiracles. The spiracles are present over the skeleton of the insect that will allow the air to enter into the trachea. So it will it will do a function of allowing the entry of air into the trachea. So spiracles sometimes can be seen. Alright. So this was the histopathological finding in our case. See guys, this is this upper area is of epidermis and dermis. Now below dermis, here in the fatty tissue we have seen the maggot. This is the maggot, right? If you see it in a higher magnification view, then this is the maggot figure. This is the histopathology showing the maggots. Here also you can see a maggot. So this is a maggot in which we can see a maggot body segment. Alright, so this is the body segment of maggot. Now if you observe carefully in the 40x view in the high power magnification, then a maggot's body segment is showing a cuticular spines. Here you can see a spines. Alright, so cuticular spines is seen over the body segment in case of an maggot infestation. So guys, kindly remember this diagram in your mind so that you can easily diagnose the maggot infestation whenever you encounter such case. And this image can be asked as a MCQ as well in some competitive exam. So this is the maggot infestation in which you can see a body segment and cuticular spine over it. Alright, now what is the treatment of such meiosis, maggot infestation? So obviously you have the wound. Usually the common mode is cutaneous myiasis. So in that wound, in that ulcer, you have to remove the maggots by the forceps or by giving the pressure around the wound, or you can do the wound debridement and the cleaning with the disinfectant. So you have to clean the wound, you have to do the wound debridement, you have to remove the all necrotic tissue and the maggots, and finally ultimately you can treat the ulcer and the maggot. All right, but guys, sometimes what happen, the major portion of maggot is in the subcutaneous tissue, so it is not easily seen over the surface. So for that you can do you can apply a one easy technique, in which you know very well that in the ulcer the larva will breathe from the furuncle that is present in the center of ulcer. So you can occlude the opening of this furuncle by putting a occlusive substance like that of petroleum jelly or soap paste. So whenever you apply such petroleum jelly or soap paste, there will be lack of oxygen for the larva, so that the larvae will force so that the larvae will move towards the surface for getting the oxygen, and in that way you can easily deal with larvae because now it is towards the skin surface. So I want to say that by occluding the furuncle, you can force the larva to reach up to the skin surface because of lack of oxygen, so that you can easily remove the larva in that way. Alright, and ivermectin is also one of the good drug for the removal of larvae. Alright, now what is the maggot therapy, guys? So guys, maggot therapy means if the larvae is used therapeutically to clean the necrotic wound, then it is known by the name maggot therapy, which is going to be very popular nowadays. So maggots can be used therapeutically as well. That is a very interesting. Alright, so this is all about the myiasis. Thanks for listening, and if you have any questions in your mind, then you can ask in the comment section. I will surely answer it. Thank you very much guys, and see you soon in the next video.